today we're going to talk about a couple of things that we can do to make make your lives a little easier. So when we start to think about what we should have in our cupboards and what we should stock, the first thing that comes to mind are going to be some of the canned goods. And I always start off with tomatoes, whether it be canned whole tomatoes, tomato paste, tomato puree. I think all three have a role, and especially tomato paste. It's easy peasy to use. Here's the other thing. I'm going to just say one quick thing about tomato paste. It comes in those little cans. And often I'll open up a can and just use a tablespoon of that and then think what to do with the rest of it. Well, what you should do is take that tomato paste and put it in a little Ziploc and stick it in the freezer. And it's really easy to take that tomato paste out of your freezer and add it frozen to whatever dish you're doing. And it gives it a really good, lovely, rich taste. But the other great thing about tomato paste, it thickens things up. So canned tomatoes, tomato paste, tomato puree. The next thing would be coconut milk and or coconut cream. Easy things to do and many variations with coconut milk or cream. Other canned things would be tuna, salmon, sardines, anchovies. Anchovies are fantastic to add to salad. You can just mush them up in your salad dressing and pour that over your salads, and it's great, and it gives it a different flavor altogether, and it's really delicious. Of course, the beans, garbanzo, black pinto, any of the beans, having a couple of cans in your cupboard is really a smart idea. Dried beans, if you've got them, are also easy peasy to do and prepare. And if you've got an Instant Pot, it's next to no time to get those beans done. I'm one of the few people that is new to the whole Instant Pot era, but I love that thing. For making bone broths, cooking beans, very quick, but also much easier to digest. You know, the beans have high amounts of lectins in them, and so sometimes we don't digest them well. So using an Instant Pot is really a good idea. Grains, rice for sure, and rice noodles, easy peasy thing to prepare. Pasta, everybody's eating pasta now. And you can decide on whether you want to have wheat pasta or you can have all the other alternatives too. So if you're gluten-free, then those would be great as well. Sweeteners, honey, maple syrup, those are my favorites to use to sweeten anything. And honey, important because it supports immunity. So even having a jar, local honey that is, a jar of local honey is great, because if you get a sore throat, it's fantastic to add to some tea or some hot water with maybe some slices of ginger and some lemon juice, and that's really supportive of your immune system, and it helps to soothe the sore throat too. Bone broth, and so with bone broth, you can do it in cartons or you can do frozen bone broth. Either way, it's not a bad idea. You can buy the frozen one from many of the stores, or you can buy the different cartons. So bone broth, you can actually even do chicken broth or miso or beef broth. Any one of those would be great. Or you can make your own, up to you. But having bone broth is really one of those key elements to have. Oils, olive oil, avocado, vinegars, balsamic or red wine. And you could even have a little bit of mirin, which is the Japanese sweetened wine, vinegar rather. I don't use a lot of it, so it lasts me over a year. But it's good when you do need to have it. But it can make the difference to a salad dressing and give you something different, which means your salads get to be rather interesting, because we can get a bit bored with them if we don't change things up a bit. The nut butters, peanut butter, all of those are really important. And, of course, the condiments, salt, pepper, hot sauce, mayo, Dijon mustard, ketchup, those things are important to have on hand. And not forgetting coffee, teas, and cocoa powder, cacao powder or cocoa powder. So those are sort of the things that one would have in your cupboard. And then, of course, flours. Gluten-free flours or wheat flours, coconut flour, almond flour, all of those things for baking, which people weren't doing but are doing a lot of now, including myself. I seem to be baking more things than we've ever had in our household, which is rather delightful for my family. So now we start to look at the perishables. So let's start off with dairy. So milk and butter can be frozen. So if you are in fear that you may not get to the store soon enough and need those products, you can always freeze them. Cheese and yogurt don't do so well. And I would always have some grated Parmesan and or Pecorino in the fridge, because these can make a difference to the taste of some of the meals as well. Other proteins would be eggs, lots of those, because you can do lots of meals with eggs, frittatas, and we'll come back to that. Bacon. I love bacon. Bacon and butter, the two B's for sure. You can add some sausage, always have some sausage on hand, and then there's chicken thighs, drumsticks, breasts, chicken breasts, whole chicken if you wanted to do those. If you do a whole chicken, of course you can make some bone broth from that as well. But they're great to have in the freezer. And if you don't have the space, then you probably want to stick to the thighs and the drumsticks. Ground beef, ground chicken, ground turkey, ground pork. A pork shoulder is not a bad idea to have, and put that in the slow cooker and cook it very slowly for a long time. And then you've got lots of pork left over for things you can do, quick meals like making carnitas. You could do tacos. It's a great protein to have, and it's really yummy. Salmon, shrimp, easy frozen things, great to haul out of the freezer and add to various foods. Going back to the whole bacon thing, if you are not too fat averse, you may want to keep some of the bacon fat and add that to vegetables. So you could stir fry or steam some of your vegetables and add the bacon fat to that, and it gives it a completely different flavor. And I will bet you your whole family would be enchanted with those greens. Vegetables. So if you can get some fresh vegetables, that's great. If not, frozen work really well. So some of the leafy greens would be kale, lettuce, spinach, Swiss chard, all the lettuces, of course. The thing about the leafy greens is you can get them in those big bags. You know, you can get the super greens or the power greens. I think Costco has them, Whole Foods. All the stores have those big bags of mixed greens. Organic Girl's got the plastic container, the clamshell, and I think she calls that power greens or super. But whatever those are, they're great to have in the fridge, and you can always add handfuls of those to soups or any casseroles or stews, but you're still getting those greens, the benefits of the greens. The other thing would be the root vegetables. So these would be beets and carrots and jicama, great for chomping on. Any of the squashes would be a good idea. Let's not forget the potatoes and the sweet potatoes. I've always got sweet potatoes and will add them to many, many different meals. The cruciferous vegetables are also fairly hardy and will last quite a while in your fridge if you store them well. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower. Cabbage is great because you can really shred it finely and put them in with the pork and the tacos. So those are great. Other vegetables, of course, now would be artichokes and asparagus and mushrooms. All of those are fabulous to have on hand, and not forgetting the peppers. They're in season now, and they're yummy and give everything such a wonderful, vibrant color. Garlic, onions, and shallots. Very important to have as base, and these last for a long time. I like the flavor of shallots. If you haven't cooked with them before, you might want to try those now. But they're great, and you can add them to all kinds of different foods, and they cook up well and easily and quite powerful in taste. Don't forget the ginger, because we want to add the ginger to many of those dishes, and for a comfort thing like teas, as I mentioned before, with a bit of honey and lemon, great too. So then we look at the fruits, and at the moment there are not a lot of those out yet because it's the season. So frozen berries would be really good because they're fabulous to make some smoothies with, especially if the kids are at home and they're chomping at the bit for whatever they need and for foods, then smoothies would be a good idea. The other foods around at the moment fruits are going to be the citrus fruits, so mandarins, lemons, grapefruit, limes, oranges. I always use lemons. I have lemons in my house all the time because they're great to squeeze or to zest into meals, and they give them that pep and deliciousness. Other things would be apples and bananas, and for that sweet tooth, I love dates. If you can find some of those, they're not bad to have around. And then not forgetting avocados and olives. If I'm doing a skillet meal, I'll add some olives to that skillet, and it completely changes everything and gives it some zest and pep too. There are some spices that are really important. In fact, in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to do one of these Skype talks about different spices and how to use them and the importance of them. So not only are they anti-inflammatory, but they also support our immune system, and they have that yum factor as well. Smoked paprika, if those of you that are a little weary of using bacon and bacon fat, then smoked paprika works really well. Of course, cumin, ground coriander, turmeric, chili flakes. Definitely some sort of curry would be a good idea, not to forget the salt and pepper. There are a bunch of others, but those are good baselines for some of the spices. So some of the meals that I would make or suggestions are smoothies using frozen berries, some peanut butter, maybe an almond milk or any other nut milks. You could do frozen strawberries and half a banana or half a banana with some avocado and some coconut milk. You could do another smoothie, which is cocoa powder, a tablespoon of almond butter, half a banana, and a coconut and some coconut milk. Open up a can of coconut milk and add that and make up a smoothie. It's really yummy. One of the other things I suggest you make is teriyaki sauce, because teriyaki is great on those chicken bits, whether it be thighs, breast, or drumsticks that you use. It's really delicious. And there's a big difference between homemade teriyaki and bought teriyaki. And if you're interested, I can send you that recipe. Skillet dinners are really one of my favorite things to do if I get home from work, and an easy way to do a quick preparation would be a skillet meal. So skillet is you just using your skillet, saute some onions, some peppers, and whatever's in the fridge or in your pantry. So broccoli, maybe a chopped up sweet potato into little bits so that they cook quickly. You could put a bit of garlic in there, some mint, or some ginger, or any of the spices that makes for deliciousness. And then you can put different things in there, maybe some sliced sausage or some leftover chicken, or you could put some shrimp in there. And you can change out the vegetables any which way you want. You could put some mushrooms in, maybe some beets another time, depending on what is enjoyed by your family, or even some Brussels sprout. Anything goes into those skillet meals, and they are really, really good. So things like greens, I'm always talking about trying to get as many of those vegetables into your diet as possible, and adding some greens, wilting some greens in a skillet would be a good idea. You could put a little bit of that bacon fat, like a teaspoon of that bacon fat in there, wilt the greens, not to the place where they just can't be distinguished between one green and the other. So a couple of minutes, and then take them out, squeeze some lemon juice, and put some Parmesan on that, and I will guarantee everyone in your family will eat those. You could also make some soup. This is an easy soup recipe. Chop up an onion, saute that in some olive oil or coconut oil, add a tablespoon of curry powder, and you can increase and decrease to your heat liking. So if you really like it hot, you can add some more chilies to that, or you can increase that curry powder. Add the can of coconut milk, and a cup of vegetable or chicken or beef broth, and then add anything else you want to that. So it could be something leftover chicken, or some shrimp, or some chopped sweet potato, or any of the squashes, some tofu, but it makes this really lovely rich broth. And just before you take the pot off the stove, add a handful of those greens, so you're getting the benefits of those vegetables too. So that's all for today. If you have any questions, please let me know. And if you would like the recipes, send me an email and I'll get those out to you too.